Well, it's a really cold wind this morning, a severe change in the weather, and a frost forecasted for tonight. So I think with these broad beans, I'm going to try and cover them over with some fleece. And these that are in the bed, one's already snapped off there, which is a real shame, but it'll shoot from the base, so that's fine. We'll get rid of that, and we'll try and give these some protection as well. That should afford them a bit of protection from the wind and the frost that's coming tonight, and hopefully they'll find their way through this spell of cold weather. And over here I've just put an Enviromesh over the top of them that will screen them from the wind and continue to let the light in. And it just goes to show, 1 minute you're in the boiling warm weather with your shorts on, and the next minute it's puffer jackets and wind. So don't be lulled into a false sense of security. It's mid-April in the South Wales valleys and you can have a frost anytime. Well, the weather has improved since this morning when it was overcast and really cold. At least now it's just windy. It's a cold wind, but the sun's come out, so everything's warmed up a bit, and in the Polytunnel it's just perfect. So this is going to be my last serious sowing of the season, at least, where I sow a number of different seeds at the same time, and I'm going to sow what I call the summer sowings. So I'm going to sow these pumpkin small sugar. I'm going to do them in two places. I'm going to sow a couple in the Polytunnel and a couple in the propagator at home, and I'm also going to sow my own saved seed from the same pumpkin variety, and again I'll sow a couple in the Polytunnel and a couple in the propagator. A very similar pumpkin is the winter luxury pumpkin, and I'm going to grow just a few of those. I'll probably do 2 in here and 2 at home. Courgettes, so the courgettes that I sowed early, they've come up in the propagator, so again I'm going to sow a couple over here and a few back in the propagator. This is the miniature pumpkin munchkin, which I grew last year successfully, and then it got eaten by slugs as soon as I put it in the ground. So a different strategy for those this year, but I'm going to grow those and get some of those sown. I'm going to put some basil in some pots and get it going in here, and I'm going to do a couple of seed challenges that are on YouTube. One is a sunflower seed challenge, and I've got myself some sunflower seeds to enter that. So I'm going to record just planting them and sowing them at the moment, and then we'll get on and do some other videos of those later on. And then the other challenge is the biggest beefsteak style tomato, and I don't normally grow beefsteak tomatoes, but when I was in America in 2014 I picked up a few varieties, and I've never sown them. So what are the chances of these growing in 2020? They invariably needed sowing before now, so I'm going to give them a try. I'm going to give all 4 varieties a try and see if I can get any to germinate, and if I can, then they'll go into the tomato challenge that's on YouTube, and I'll do a separate video for that as well. So the 4 varieties I've got here are Dixie Golden Giant, Brandywine OTV, Brandywine Sudduths and Mortgage Lifter, so named because it grew large tomatoes. So I'm going to give those a go and see if I can get them germinated. The other thing I'm going to do is the same as I did with these Zeebrunn shallots. Cut off the tops and see how they've all stood up nicely. Well, I've got these, which is the yellow Rheinsberger, so I'm going to cut those as well in the same way, see if I can get them to stand up just as the others have. It seems like a really practical thing to do before I get to planting them out. So these two trays here have not been very successful. We've got the best of all that's got very low germination rate. We seem to have a Swede that's escaped into the Cosmos tray, and we've got a solitary Cosmos Millennium. So rather than have these taking up valuable space, I'm now going to prick these out, pop them on, and we'll keep those going whilst we grow some replacement seeds for the Swedes. And the Cosmos, I think I've probably got plenty anyway. The flower bed is coming together. So at the moment we've got some garlic chives, some rosemary and some oregano. This is some daisies from our garden, which have been split. I'm not sure what this plant is, but it very purple flower on quite a high stem, and the bees love it, so we've split some of that from the garden. We've got a fuchsia that's seen better days, but it is a perennial and we're hopeful that it will come back. Here we've got some penstemon, and that's taken from a cutting. It's just starting to shoot. We're going to use this for some sweet peas because we've got plenty of those growing in the polytunnel. Some more of that purple bee-loving plant, and here of course we've got the raspberry. The apple trees have got beds underneath that we want to grow flowers, so we've got seeds in all of these beds now. In this bed and that one we've got calendula, we've got sweet Sicily and rudbeckia in this one, some poppies over in that one there, and then in these two we've got cosmos, and we're hoping that they'll grow, all of them with these grids over the top to stop the cats using them as litter trays. These rhubarbs, they took a bit of a knockback when I planted them, but it's good to see some new buds and some new growth coming. This one particularly has got lots of new leaves. The old leaves really took a battering. They didn't like being moved at all. And this one, not quite as much new growth, a little bit down there. But rhubarb bounces back. We probably won't be taking stems from any of these plants this year. This one's got a nice new leaf on it. Interestingly, the later variety, which I don't know what it is because it's very old, doesn't seem to have suffered at all from being moved, so that's obviously much more resistant to being messed around with. So I seem to be going through thermometers like hotcakes. To be fair, I've had this one for many years and the digits on it started to disappear, so I swapped it over for this one, which I've been having in the shed for a good couple of years, but I'm beginning to doubt whether these temperatures are correct, and it's showing a maximum temperature of 51 degrees, and for a couple of days I thought, well, maybe it's been really hot, but now not so much. I think it's probably giving me some false readings. So it's time for it to come down. These are not expensive, these thermometers. They give you the minimum and maximum, which I always find interesting and useful. But I don't think they have a tremendously long life. There's a good possibility that the battery needs replacing, so I will take it home and see if that's the case. But otherwise, it's time to swap it out. So I've obtained this small fella. This is a minimum and maximum thermometer. It's got great ratings on Amazon. It's by Therm Pro, and it's got a magnetic back to it, so I'm hoping that it's going to fix on, which it does, and we'll see how we go with that one. So one of the things that I want to get done now is to clear out these various seeds and seedlings so that I can plant into this soil. And I've got these potatoes which I've kept moving around. I want to get those in today, and I've noticed that this bed, of course, which was made an awful lot from soil that I've taken from other areas in the plot, has now got a covering of weed growth or seedling growth. So I'm just going to need to clear that before I start planting in. And I'm going to be putting in some beetroot and some lettuce. These beetroots are nice and vigorous now. I had a few cells which didn't fire, and I sowed extra seed into those, and they're just starting to come through. So it's only going to be the larger ones that I plant out. And I always use the bench over this bed, and therefore I want plants that are at the back that are low growing, because I don't want them to come up to the bench, that don't mind a bit of shade, which these don't. And I'm going to have those in there for some considerable time, so it saves me having to tend to plants at the back. And then I'll put salad crops or lettuce in the front, and with the lettuce, which I pick from on a regular basis, I then don't have to lean over into the back of the bed. So I'm going to start planting these on, and to get them out of these cells can be a bit of a fuff. One method is just to give it a real good tap, and then from the base you've got a hole and you can push them through. Either that, or you can send a dibber in and try and hook it out. So I'm going to get on with planting those up. I don't know how many times I've cleared this area, but that's the way it works in the polytunnel. You move to and fro, making the space for the jobs that you want to do. And today I'd like to set out how I use the tomato pots, just to see how many plants I need or I'm going to use. So I'm going to put these potatoes back over there, clear this area and sweep it up. and then we'll lay these out and see what sort of spacing we need, and we'll find the canes properly for these saucers as well and get underway. I find it really hard to throw any plants away, so all those strawberries that have come out of the ground have gone into these old vegetable boxes. I've used some compost from previous years which I've stored, added some potash and some slow release bloodfish and bone fertilizer, and then planted them up, and they seem to go on forever coming out of that bed. But now we've got the hanging strawberries of Babylon on top of the water tank, which should be good for keeping the pests away, the slugs particularly, and hopefully we'll just get loads and loads of strawberries. So this is a first for me. I'm using last year's potato compost for a second time. During the year it's been in the compost bin, and I've added chicken manure to it and some well rotted compost in layers so that it gets well mixed in. The worms have certainly been rising to the top and eating the decomposed compost, so it looks good so far. So I filled my potato bins to about 3 or 4 inches, and I'm going to add a goodly amount of potato feed. This is a fertilizer which is organic, and I'm going to add that into each pot and mix it up. these are my potatoes. They're Charlotte, nice size. They're all starting to chit, and I'm going to put 3 in each bucket to start with and see how I go. Planted all of those potatoes in 3s into the pots, and now all I'm going to do is backfill with the spent compost and add a little bit of feed on the top. So today we're going to be putting the mesh onto the frame so that we're ready to bring the chickens over shortly. And the idea is that you piece together 3 lengths of the wire, which is just about 3 foot wide, and you put together 6 meter lengths, and you end up with 3 pieces that we drape over the top of this. In reality, that will have an awful lot more overlap than we need, so we've cut the last piece to size, and then it should make the job of putting it over the frame that much easier. So we're going to get on with that. The instructions say to put this bolt on last. I guess that's to further fix the mesh to the frame, so I need to take that off before we drape it over the top. And the other thing I need to consider is this bush, which is going to be in the way, and I think I'm going to prune it so that it doesn't work its way into the mesh and cause any issues, and that shouldn't do this bush any harm at all. So this is the mesh fixed together with small cable ties. You put a cable tie in every 3 holes, and this is a 1-inch square mesh. So there's 3 pieces, 1 piece cut to size, and then 2 3-foot pieces that have been fixed, and they're 6 meters long. Successfully draped over the mesh, and the way that this gets fixed is to do the ridge fixings first and then work your way down the sides and then across the stretchers. And we've got this overlap which is used to come down the top and wrap around all the sides, and then 2 pieces go up the center, and we'll have to cut out the door. But so far so good, and this mechanism of black ties, plastic ties, fix it really well, and it's a fairly simplistic process. So at the moment we're delighted. So the mesh is pretty much fixed now. We've got this piece all along the base which will prevent any burrowing under. Everything is secured now with these tags. We've wrapped around the extra and created the top piece with the overlap from the top, and that will now complete the job for today. Now it just leaves us to do the front area and the door tomorrow. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, And if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.